Hello everyone, and thanks for joining me today. Okay, continuing to work our way through this project, which is going to take a while. Don't know if you can hear my guinea pig digging around. She likes to pull the hay I give her apart and sort of make a nest out of it. And she's always convinced the stuff at the bottom must be better than the stuff at the top. So she digs her way through. I don't know how much longer we'll have her for. She's an older girl. They live about generally 6 to 8 years. The oldest one, the world record holder, was like 14 years old, but that's pretty unusual. But yeah, we don't know exactly how old she is because she was a rescue. But we've had her for almost 7 years now. And we think she was about a year old when we got her, so yeah, we're guessing she's about 8. Yeah, they're really nice pets because you can play with them and cuddle them, but they're quite happy in their cage. You don't have to walk them every day or anything like that. As long as they've got a comfy cage and you feed them, they're pretty happy. Yeah, usually you need to have more than one because they're little social creatures. But ours prefers to be alone. We tried getting her a cage mate, and she was not having it. So. Well, she likes my sister-in-law has a pet bunny, and all the guinea pigs love to follow her around. It's pretty cute. Oh, yeah, almost putting that on the wrong side of the grid line. Do not want to do that. Try not to have a repeat of last session. My gosh, I parked so many things wrong. It was almost embarrassing. Yeah, I always say this method gives me fewer counting errors, but I mean, there's always going to be some, right? Okay. So, right, I decided to do more than one thread in this area. But there's quite a lot of this color, so that will be okay. Gosh. Could not find the right spot. And that's with my dominant hand. Yeah, I tried learning to stitch two-handed both ways with dominant hand below and above so that I could, you know, switch and that way I could keep stitching for longer periods without getting uncomfortable, but I cannot do it with my dominant hand on top. My left hand underneath, I just cannot find the holes. So I gave up. I do find, though, doing two-handed stitching does help prevent fatigue as opposed to when I used to stitch one-handed. So that part I'm glad I stuck with because it took me about a week to feel comfortable doing the way I stitch now, one hand above and one beneath. I found it also enables me to use a bit of a bigger frame. I was using only an 11 by 11 Q-snap before, because otherwise when I was bringing my hand, you know, moving it above and below, I would smack into the frame if the frame was too big. But now that I stitch with two hands, because there's less movement above and below, I don't smack into it. So now I can use the 11 by 17 size, so that means I don't have to move my frame as often, which is nice. I did try 17 by 17 once, but that was just too awkward. I found I was having to stretch my arms out in front of me too far to reach sort of the top part of the frame, so it wasn't worth it. Okay, let me see here how long this piece is. Yeah, that is long enough. Okay. Ooh, my pardon. Ugh. Yeah, Q-snap actually, I believe they started as a quilting frame, hence the Q. And they make a floor stand that I looked at, but it was so big that, yeah, I didn't think it'd be very practical for cross stitch. If I found 17 by 17 inches too big, then, you know, something that's 30 by something would be definitely too big. It was actually advertised that it was made so that you could have more than one person at the frame at the same time, which of course is more common when you're quilting. So I'm pretty happy with the setup I have now. This floor stand with the Q-snap in it. Okay, and starting another thread. This time I'm not thinning out my barked threads, I'm adding to them. Oh, that is all right. Eventually we'll thin them out again as we keep working. This is another one where the colors are not what you'd expect. There's these kind of shrub trees or hedge trees, I guess. A lot of blue on them. But it's like the shadowy side, I guess. Looks kind of weird up close, but yeah, when you back up, it looks good. So once again, I will trust the pattern. Yeah, I have made, this is my third pattern by Artecy Designs. I've been very happy with their charting. Not all of their patterns are as big. This is a large version, so they have, the ones I did before were smaller. They were like 200 by 300, pardon me, stitches. So they were, yeah, quicker stitches. Those I did in about 9 months each, I think. But this one was so detailed that I decided to go for the large version. Yes, I left that one threaded because it's like right on the edge and it's the last stitch of that color in that section, so I figured I would finish it off when I get to it. Yeah, pretty sure that's what Past Me decided to do. Even if it wasn't, that's what Present Me has decided to do. Oh my gosh, there we go. There, that one was just kind of, you could see it was wanting to twist on itself, so I just sort of let it untwist. You can always dangle to untangle, put it down through the fabric, and then just sort of drop the needle and let it untwist. Especially if you're doing lots of stitches in a row. Sometimes when I pull the needle back up, I'll sort of give it a half turn to untwist it if I notice that it's starting to get twisty. Which way it twists kind of depends on your personal tension. For me, it's a twist counterclockwise to untwist it. So for you, it may be different, just depending. Oh. Yeah, there's almost no green on these shrubs. It's all mostly blues and grays since it's in shadow, but it works. Okay, so now I filled in, yeah, the stitches that were to the left. So now I can do 2 of these and then park, as they are leftmost and cornermost. And again, this is one that is just past the diagonal line, but I am probably going to park it and do it when I get to it, because it is so close to the edge, and it's sort of the last one of that stitch. That way I can end off that thread and have one less hanging. Okay. Or should I say one fewer? I don't remember my grammar rules, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I often joke. English is not a real language. It's a bunch of other languages chucked in a blender. Oh, which is why we have, here is the rule, and then here's the 26 exceptions to the rule. Okay, let me decide. Okay, so I see what I'm going to do. In order to do that, I'm going to have to go further left and work my way back up. Pull to the wrong side. Yeah, it's been an interesting learning experience for me. I did study some French, and then my husband is bilingual. He speaks Hungarian, was his first language, and he says, yeah, there's grammar structure is much less strict than in English, and they have fewer words. I remember I had a friend who was from Austria, so she spoke German, and she would say, I will borrow you this rather than I will lend you or loan you this, because in her language, there's only one word for that. In English, there's, whether you're the one who's giving or the one who's getting changes which word you use. So, yeah, and then in Hungarian is very similar. So, I haven't learned to speak it, just know a few words here and there. I'm not very good at other languages. Studied French for like 8 years and I don't remember very much of it. I can generally catch enough if I'm listening to it. I can catch enough words, I can catch the gist of what someone is saying, but actually trying to speak French is, pardon me, much more difficult. As I only catch about, a third of the words. It's enough to grasp what someone might be saying, but to try to express yourself to them is, much more difficult. It's funny too, we joke. I like cross-language puns because there's a joke. It says, I asked my German friend what the square root of 81 was, and he said no, 9, right? Which means no. And in Hungarian, the word thing means fart. So we have a lot of fun joking, pull my finger. I saw a language talking about, or a poem talking about English and saying, fingers don't fing. And I said, well, but if you're Hungarian, they could. Yeah, or I was saying the other day, I noticed that because I remember reading, they said curse words in different languages often have a lot of very similar sounds, like consonant sounds, because I guess they must be satisfying to yell when you're frustrated. And I was also thinking, I noticed that no is similar in so many languages. It always seems to start with an N for a lot of languages. You have non in French, you have niet in Russian, 9 in German, and in Hungarian it's nem. So, yeah, I just thought that was kind of interesting that, these different languages evolved in different parts of the world, and yet a n sound seems to be a very common way of saying no. Yes is not always the same, right? But no is much more universal. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know if there's any other languages with sort of N sounds for no that I missed. Those are the only ones I'm familiar with. Yeah, I kind of noticed that because we're still watching Arrow, as I mentioned before, and in one of the plot lines, the main character was in Russia for a while and got mixed up with the Russian mob. So there's people saying "niet" and thinking, oh, yeah, that's another N sound for no. Yeah, we're almost done the show. Got like 2 episodes left. I'm kind of at that point where it's like I want to see how it ends, but I kind of don't want to finish it yet because then the show's over, right? And you get that, now what do I do hangover? Like I probably mentioned in another video how we felt when we finished Battlestar Galactica in like 2016 or something. And we haven't watched it a second time yet, even though we own it on Blu-ray, because I don't know, I'm still having that hangover of the feeling of oh, I can't believe it's over and there's no more new ones. So we kind of just keep putting it off and watching different shows. Eventually we'll get back to it. I know we're going to watch that one more than once. Yeah, that's the Ronald D. Moore reboot version from like the early 2000s. Yeah, not the original one. I never saw that one. But yeah, I love Ronald D. Moore. I think he's brilliant. I'll watch pretty much anything he's ever worked on. He was one of the main directors, producers for Star Trek Deep Space Nine, which is my favorite all-time show. Not just of Star Trek, but like ever. So, and they turned the Outlander book series into a TV show. And I had read the books, and I thought, there's no way they can adapt that well. You know, they're gonna ruin it. I'm not gonna watch it. And then I found out that Ronald D. Moore was producing, and I went, well, okay, if anybody could make that work, he could. And I have to say, he is doing a really good job. There's a couple of times he cut out some parts, some of my favorite parts, just small scenes, but I really liked them, and he didn't keep them in. That I was a little disappointed, but all in all, I say good job. It's been pretty good. So, yeah, I believe season 6 just started. Yeah, they've done up to the Fiery Cross. They did Outlander and then Dragonfly and Amber when they were in France, and Voyager when they head to America. Well, before it's America. Drums of Autumn when they're there. Fiery Cross. So now they're on... Which one is it now? I've forgotten the order of them after that point. It's not an Echo in the Bone, I don't think. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up. I can't remember now which book it is. There's that. The last one I read was Written in My Heart's Own Blood. And there's a new one, Go Tell the Bees I've Gone, which I haven't started yet. I will at some point. But I mean, they're really big books, so yeah, they're a long time investment. I know I'm forgetting one of the titles of the books. Yeah, they did a really good job. I remember in the second season, I won't spoil it, but there is a part that will probably make you cry. I bawled. And I knew it was coming because I mean I'd read the books. And it still, God, it still hit me like a sledgehammer. My gosh. My husband came downstairs. Oh my goodness, this one does not want to. Okay, I'm gonna pin stitch this because I think the threads on the back are kind of thick in this area for some reason. I can't seem to catch it to thread it along that way. So I'm just gonna pin stitch this. There are darker colors in this area, so it'll cover it up without a problem. But anyway, my husband came down and I was just sobbing, and he's like, what happened? You know, he thought I got a phone call that somebody died or something, and it was like, no, it was just the show. I cried the same way when I'd read the book. So it was one of those, I had to keep stopping to blow my nose, wipe my eyes, because I couldn't see the words anymore. I was crying too hard. Yeah, a bit of a sap that way. There's a couple of Christmas novellas I read every year, and I know that they will make me cry. And I mean, there's one of them. I must have read it a dozen times now because I reread it every year. And every year I think it's not going to make me cry this time. You know, I've read this so many times, it's not going to pack that same emotional punch, but nope, every year it does. It's this little like 70-page novella in a book that it is out of print, but I think you can get it on Kindle. So you can't get it in print anymore, but unless you track down a used copy. But it's a novella by Jane Blackwood called Maybe This Christmas, and I think it shows up in, it's one of those collections where the main author is Fern Michaels. And can't remember what the main one is called, but I'm thinking if you search for the Jane Blackwood Maybe This Christmas, you'll find it. I will put a link to it. If I forget, drop me a note and remind me to do that. To the Kindle copy, so if you want to read it, you can get it. And yeah, every year I bawl. And then the other one I really like is another one that I believe is out of print, but again, you can get it in Kindle, by Mary Balogh, who writes Regency romance. And she's written a couple of other time periods, but mostly she writes Regency romance. And it's called Guarded by Angels, and it's in a book collection called Angel Christmas. It's got a red cover. It's one of those, you know, almost Fabio covers that I'm not a fan of, but I found it at the thrift store for like $1, and it had 5 novellas in it, so I thought, why not? Because I absolutely love Christmas. I'll watch or read pretty much anything Christmas themed, so I got it, and that one again, cry every year. So yeah, I'll put a link to those, both of those, in case you're curious and want to read them yourself. But I save those every year and I read them, and I sort of save them for a day when I know I'm going to have time to have a good cry, because I know they're going to make me cry. Yeah, I saw a meme that said, you know, this book stomped on my heart and ripped it to shreds and destroyed me. And then also me. Here, read it. Oh. Yeah, I'm a sap like that. Oh, my husband came in once when I was watching Grey's Anatomy and crying. And he says, why do you watch that stuff? You know it's going to make you cry. I said, well, duh, that's why I watch it. Having a good cry is a great emotional release. You feel better afterwards, right? Yeah. Or what was it? Oh, the movie Ladder 49. My gosh, bawled. And again, I knew it was coming. You know, I had read reviews, so it wasn't a shock, but Oh, they did such a good job that it still punches you in the gut. Yeah, that was I think also a early 2000s movie, maybe late 90s. So that was sort of before Chicago Fire Show became a big thing, which of course I watch as well. Okay, right. Now this one is right on the line, but I decided to do it because I want to do the green one next to it. Then that thread will be ended off. And I will not have to deal with it on my next diagonal. Yeah, there's a few episodes of Star Trek that I know are going to get me too. They're almost always the ones of kids in peril. Yeah. Even before I became a parent, yeah, those ones. Those ones will do it for you. My family's kind of used to it by now. That was another meme I saw. It said, I have a smart mouth for someone who cries whenever they're yelled at. Because, yeah, it's true. I try to act like I'm tough, but I'm a marshmallow. Gosh, 30-second ad can get me to cry, for Pete's sake, if it's done well enough. There was one that I can't even remember what the ad was for. It was during the Olympics, and it sort of showed a girl, you know, following her dream to be an athlete or whatever. And, you know, she falls down and comes off the ice, and her mom, you know, hugs her, and how, you know, she's always there for her and supports her until she makes her Olympic dream. And just, yeah. Like, oh, come on. How could you do that in 30 seconds? But they did. Yeah, we'll see how many stitches we get done in this session. That session I tried to make a couple sessions back, and my tablet screen capture didn't work. And I think that was the most stitches I'd done in a session. I'd done almost like 160 in an hour, even though it was a fairly high confetti area. I was so proud of myself. And then it was like, you didn't record, you piece of junk. Oh, so mad. So I still have the accompanying video for that, but I mean, without the pattern, you can't see what I'm doing and why I'm making the choices I'm making for where to add threads and park threads and carry them. So I saved the footage. I don't know, maybe I'll use it one day, but and it doesn't have the accompanying pattern. That's going to annoy me, so it won't be up to my usual standard. Yeah, trying to learn and improve. Okay, so I am here. All right, another dark purple. Yeah, this color gets used a lot next to, like, there's some here next to the dark browns, but of course they kind of, well, like they're supposed to, they add to the shading and kind of blend in, so you don't really see that it's purple. It doesn't jump out at you, but it works. Yeah, I was quite surprised at how much of this color I needed, since I didn't think there was, you know, much purple on this pattern. There's some pinks on some of those cherry blossom trees, but there isn't really much purple used there. So I remember looking at it and thinking, you know, why do I need so much purple? There's no purple in this pattern, but there is. It's just hiding on you. Okay, so this one I was going to carry and park it, but it's short, so no point. I'll end it off and then start a new thread further down and get to more of this symbol. Okay, again, either way, it's going to be one in park because I can't, the way these sort of cross over each other, and with me trying not to do them out of order, that's just the way it is. Oh my gosh, there. There. Just trying to park that, not mark it as done. Yes, saying I cry at movies. The last time I went to a theater before, you know, the world changed was to see Marvel's Endgame. And there were a couple parts I cried, and I think I annoyed the guy sitting next to me. Oh. Yeah, that was, we don't often go to the theater. We usually wait for stuff to come out on video release. Because, I mean, Marvel's movies, we generally just buy them even if we haven't watched them yet, because we know we're going to like them. And then we got to the end of Infinity War, and I won't spoil it, but I mean, well, it was not the ending I was expected. And we had to wait a year for Endgame to come out so that we could see how it ended. But yeah, I was remember we bought Infinity War to watch it. Hadn't seen it in the theater, sat down and watched it, and then I was just at the end sitting there with my mouth hanging open, just like, wait, that can't be how it ends. What the heck? Oh. And then yeah, I had to wait a year for the next movie. So and it was a longer one. That's another reason I like to wait till things come out on DVD. I can take a bathroom break whenever I need to, right? Because it was like almost a 3-hour movie, I think. Or it was 3 hours, but close to it. And that's a long time to have to hold it, you know? I did make it, but I had to make sure I had no drinks with me. And go to the bathroom right before it started so that I could hold it that long. But I said, well, I'd made it through Lord of the Rings, The Return of the King, which was over 3 hours when it first came out. So I was determined to make it all the way through that movie too. Although I was younger then when Lord of the Rings, Return of the King came out. It was close to 20 years ago now. Yeah, that makes me feel old because how can it have been that long? Oh gosh, yeah, someone's saying that you know, the actor who played Argon, Vigo, is now the same age as Ian McKellen was when he played Gandalf. It's like, what? No, that's not right. Oh, how did that happen? Yeah, I hadn't read those books before they made them into movies. So I know I had a few people who had read the books who said there were a few changes, but that it was mostly faithful to the books. The Hobbit I read, because that was a required reading when I was in grade 10, I think? 9 or 10. Yeah. Although I made the mistake of, as usual, I procrastinated. I put off reading it till the night before the test. Yeah. Don't try to read one of Tolkien's books in one sitting. My gosh. I felt like my brains were going to leak out my ears. Yeah, there was somebody said, people had trouble going for walks with Tolkien because he would stop and examine, every bush and every flower and every insect. Somebody said, well, that explains the books then. Because, yeah, he never said something in one sentence when 30 would do, right? Oh, my gosh. That's probably why I was more a fan of the Narnia Chronicles when I was a kid, because they're more to the point. Yeah, actually, I really liked the 1988 adaptation they made, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Like, yeah, not the best special effects because, BBC in 1988. And some of the animations hand-drawn, and so it wouldn't hold up to today's special effects. But I felt that they got the capturing of the story and the characters spot on. So to me, it still holds up, even if some of the costuming is not so good. I remember they said the beaver costumes were like basically just these cylindrical things, and that actually if one of the actors fell over, other people had to come and stand them back up because there was no way they could get back up because they couldn't bend at the waist. Like nowadays, they would just, CGI in little beaver, not have a person in a costume. But yeah, I loved the dialogue was lifted, word by word from the book a lot of times. And yeah, BBC's pretty good at doing that. I found like they made the adaptation of Pride and Prejudice in 1995, I think, with Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely. And yeah, the dialogue, they basically took word for word from the book. It was wonderful. And in fact, I remember watching a interview with one of the actors, Alison Steadman, I think, who played Mrs. Bennet, and saying, they would go through and do this whole scene, and then the director would say, I'm sorry, but you got those 2 words out of order. And fans of the book are going to notice. They're going to get mad if you get it wrong, so do it again. And I'm really glad they did because, yeah. I've read the book and I found that was the most faithful adaptation. I know a lot of people like the Keira Knightley and was it Matthew McFadden version, but unfortunately for me, the problem is, they had to squash it down into a movie format, and it's such a big book that you have to sacrifice quite a bit of it, because I remember I started watching it, and the whole point when Mr. Bennet says, oh, I've already called on him, but they've cut out the whole part where for, a week, he's pretending he wasn't going to call on Mr. Bingley. And then when Mrs. Bennet says, I'm sick of Mr. Bingley, he says, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. If I'd known as much this morning, I would never have called on him. And of course, because for time they had to cut that, they missed that whole part. Well, that was one of my favorite parts, the way Mr. Bennet teases his wife. He knows exactly what buttons to push for her, right? Yes, apparently I read that Jane Austen herself was much like Mr. Bennet, the observer who always has a dry remark to make. And people can't be sure whether he's being sarcastic or not, often. They take him seriously when he is poking fun at them and they don't realize that he is poking fun at them. Yeah. It was funny. My husband bought me that, because all I'd had was a copy I'd recorded off of A&E. So he got me an official copy for my birthday, but he'd never been introduced to anything Jane Austen. So he, you know, thought, this is a girly movie. I'm not interested. So he sat there with his Game Boy next to me while I watched it. And I watched the first 2 episodes and then sort of got up to make myself a snack. And he says, well, are you going to put the next tape in? Because this was when it was on, you know, 6 VHS tapes or whatever. And I said, oh, really? I thought you weren't watching. He says, it got interesting, okay? So, yeah, I sucked him into the world of Jane Austen. He's seen all the adaptations I like. Yeah, the BBC did one of Emma, I think 2015 or something like that. More recently, which I quite enjoyed. And Sense and Sensibility, which was adapted by Emma Thompson, who played Eleanor in the movie, and Hugh Grant. And of course, now that Alan Rickman has passed on, the movie hits a little harder. Yeah. He'll be missed. But yeah, I enjoyed that one as well. I actually watched those with my son, and he quite enjoyed them too. So it's not just for ladies. It's for anybody. And as someone said, you know, Jane Austen really turned things on their heads there because, I mean, Mr. Darcy is so rich, you know, and, you know, the Bennets are in fairly dire straits. And so that's why he's so shocked when Lizzie basically tells him to stuff his first proposal. Because, you know, according to the rules, she should have been falling at his feet, grateful that he wanted to marry her. And instead she gives him what for, you know. Oh, yeah, there was some memes I saw going around where it was like as if there were text exchange between the characters. You know, there's one with him talking with Mr. Bingley, you know, and Bingley says, you know, if you want a girl to like you, you should tell her, you know, that you enjoy spending time with her. Maybe throw in that she looks nice. And then Mr. Darcy saying, oh, I just told Elizabeth that her family sucks, you know, and her looks are tolerable or something. And there's, you know, this pause and then, okay, I'm going to start again. Let me know where I lost you. Or one, you know, I told Elizabeth that her family's embarrassing, and well, was this before or after the proposal? During. Darcy! I parked that one wrong. Yep. I marked that I parked it somewhere else. Yeah, try that again. There we go. Just going to unthread that because I'm not going to be using it again for a while. Or yeah, there's one as if he was proposing to Elizabeth over text, you know. Says, you're okay looking, but nothing special. Also, your family is really embarrassing. And, you know, you're below me socially in all ways. Will you marry me? And then, well, tell me where I went wrong. Oh. Listen, I guess that's why it endures so well. You know, she takes no crap. And Mr. Darcy has to learn that, hey, you know what? Just because you're rich and you're the nephew to an earl doesn't mean you're going to get everything you want if you're going to be a jerk about it, you know? He has to learn. You may have thought you were above her, but you weren't really worthy of her until you learned better. So, yeah. Or like they said, you know, Elizabeth turns him down. And so he writes a letter to her to, you know, to clear up the misconception she has about his behavior. Because, of course, he was painted as a villain, and he is innocent of that crime anyway. And, but that, you know, the words of the letter start, you know, be not alarmed, madam, that this hold any renewal of the attentions that this evening you found so disgusting to you, you know. None of this, hey, hear me out again. Just, okay, I won't ask you to marry me again, but I just need to set the record straight because you got this part wrong. And that when he finally dares to propose to her a second time, basically says, but if you know, you still don't want me, just tell me and I'll never bug you again. Yeah, I haven't watched that in a while. I should pull it out again, I think. Of course, I have it on DVD now. I gave my old VHS set to a relative who still has a... We do have a VHS player, but I mean... Yeah. My husband has kept it around. Well, we have some home videos on there. Our wedding video is on VHS, so... I know I should get around to digitizing it at some point. It's like, I plan to digitize a bunch of our old photos. We have the negatives still. I had to explain to my son what a negative was. But yeah, have to get a scanner, scan those in. Yeah, I have a couple relatives who still like to do photography on film. So that's pretty neat. Yeah, I think that's a medium that's never going to fully go away. Okay. Oh, lots of color changes, but we're making some pretty good progress today. Almost at 100 stitches already. Oh, don't want to do that. End will come to the right side if I do that, so. Another pin stitch. Okay, I think this one is still threaded. Perhaps not, we shall see. No, it is not. Okay. Then, none of these are threaded, so I'm just gonna put them aside. Yeah. I mean, they're right on the line, so I'm just gonna leave them for the next diagonal. Okay. Okay, back to light colors for a bit. This is the area sort of between those shrubs. The light coming through. Sometimes when I'm pulling threads free, they come off the needle, so every now and then I just check for loose needles down there that no longer have thread through them. Just put them back up on my needle minder. Oh. Nice even 100. Don't have very many threaded now. Worked through those. Now those threads are either parked in the next diagonal or ended off, so. Once again, I did not have to reset and take all my needles off. I often like to also do the lighter colors first, if it's sort of between, doesn't really make a difference to closing things in, because that way I don't pull the fluffies from the darker colors through, because I've had that before when you have sort of white right next to black. It can pull the little fuzzies from the black through and they get stuck in the white threads, and yeah, then you gotta pick them out. They're very, very noticeable when it's, yeah, on white or a color that's so light it might as well be white. So I could have chosen to do some of these darker colors sort of next to this light color, but I'm going to do these light ones first because of that. Of course, sometimes if the darker colors are more to the left and above, then I do them first because I don't like to close them in, so it all depends. Good, now I can finish these white ones because, yeah, this thread's really short as well. That needle will not stay on if I leave it for too long and do other stuff. So back up a bit. Okay, so carry on. Did that one because then I can do all of these around that corner in one go. Goes a little faster that way. Okay, so I think I'm going to wrap this up for today. And thanks once again for joining me. All right, bye.